am not the brightest person. I 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 am not the brightest.
How dare you?
Very nice.
Now we have three guests waiting in the green room. We're going to have a vote. Right, Matt, this is probably one of the first times this has ever been done on Manchester Public TV.
Ooh.
The first caller we get, we're going to either pick Joel Elber and Peter White, the great hosts of the most popular show
Yes.
in Manchester that's not with Fritz Weatherby.
Right, yes.
Amsterdam. Or we have Rich Gerard, who for some reason is being very magnanimous today.
Is he?
Do we have a
Very
caller?
nice. Oh, let's see.
Hey, do I have to give my name?
These callers, I'll tell you
These
what.
callers.
Don't they want to win something? What are they winning? I can't remember.
Okay. I
Employees
think
are not eligible, by
we
the way.
have to admit that before Peter White busts his gasket, that we had this rig. Can we get Joel with the phone? Let's go. Joel, are you still calling in?
It's still ringing.
It is?
Answer the phone.
Oh, we have another call.
Oh, here we go.
Oh.
Let's see who they're going to vote for our guy.
Who is this?
Who is it?
Hi, this is the most, as known as Joel Elber.
And
It's
I
okay.
and I just saw that video of Stinky, and I'm going to vote for Stinky.
Well, Brendan is Stinky out there. We'll have to have him
I
in.
already know you're on. Look.
No. You guys are by satellite from another location.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I just want to call.
And, I'm somewhere in Siberia, and I just happened to have my laptop on, and I saw the intro, and I saw Stinky,
and I want to vote for Stinky.
We just learned that he's fled the building.
I don't think
Okay.
Okay, goodbye.
Well, I guess I guess we'll have to go with our alternative guest.
from space.
That was groundbreaking. Yes.
So, welcome to my first show at 1 p.m. Our guests are Peter White and Joel Elber of Amsterdam. Hi, that was a long time ago, 1 p.m. Now I'm on at 4 p.m. I still can't have trouble getting guests. It wasn't like my night slot when it was me and Matt Condon having TV shows back to back. That was great. Then I had, he went to the radio, so he had to give up his TV show. Then it was Jim O'Connell and me, back to back. But little did I know that moving to Wednesdays at 3 would hamper me. Everybody else knew that, but not me, in getting guests. I'm supposed to have a couple of people calling in today, but we'll see if it'll happen. In about 10 minutes or so, to finish up the show from last year about Nightmare Alley. Peter Stiller is supposed to call in. Actually, he's supposed to call in earlier, but he's got, he actually has to work for a living. Hey, folks, it's a tough thing to talk about the recent big story here in New Hampshire. Oh my, how do you even begin to talk about it? Harmony of Montgomery. I have a letter here from the state of New Hampshire, the office of the governor, to Chief Justice Kimberly S. Budd of the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court. why the governor is writing to the Chief Justice rather than having his Attorney General. Well, he's a politician, and he has to be reelected every 2 years. And the New Hampshire DCYF, I guess that's the department. There's youth in there. Geez, Brendan, do you know what DCYF stands for? Division, Children, Youth, and Families. Thank you. Yeah, if I'm chuckling, it's because just to try to keep the rage from rising. I have my grumpy hat on. This letter is kind of unbelievable. Dear, it says, Chief Justice Budd, I write to you today with grave concerns surrounding the ongoing investigation into the disappearance of Harmony Montgomery. It is everyone's first priority to bring her home safe. First of all, I don't know why people don't say it. That girl's dead. She's not alive. You don't disappear for 2 years and pop up somewhere. When a child is kidnapped, they've got like 24 hours to get a kid before the inevitable will happen. This child, everybody knows this, murdered, but politicians can't say anything. And this is a very poor politician, in my estimation, trying to save his ass because the New Hampshire DCYF is, in my opinion, incompetent. It's not even, in my opinion, it's scandal-ridden, and it's shameful. There was a piece by a child advocate in Manchester Inklink, which I just had to stop reading it because more passing of the buck, where the woman says, oh, this is the live free or die state. So how much can you do? And she blames everything on the lack of community. Well, that's a bunch of crap in itself. And the union leader, who I don't agree with frequently, said so. I mean, it's a failure, the New Hampshire DCYF, the Division of Children, Youth, and Families. Jumping ahead to the third paragraph, Governor Sununu, or whoever, the Amanuensis, if I pronounce that correctly, the person that writes this stuff for him, writes, Harmony's father, Adam Montgomery, is a monstrous drug dealer with previous convictions, including shooting someone in the head and a separate armed attack on 2 women in Massachusetts. There's some real temperate language, right? A monstrous drug dealer. This is a political speech. This is being released for political ends to cover his ass because he's incompetent. I've been told by people that have to deal with him, he doesn't even read. He's barely literate. I mean, it's just the propensity of Americans, not just Americans, people all over the world, just to vote in a dynasty because of a name. And he's got a smile, and he's a nice person, right? That's all that counts. Psychologically, it actually is about all that counts. And just listen to this. This is the next paragraph. The family was troubled, transient, and originally engaged with the Massachusetts Child Protection System. Only as an unfortunate result of Harmony's disappearance has New Hampshire come to learn the full extent of the family's background and the type of upbringing Harmony faced prior to arriving in New Hampshire. This is a new paragraph. In fact, in December 2018, the Massachusetts Department of Children and Families requested that New Hampshire DCYF conduct a home study of Adam Montgomery and his then-wife, Kayla Montgomery. New Hampshire's DCYF Interstate Compact for the Placement of Children Unit responded to a MADCF stating that in order to conduct the home study, additional information was needed regarding Adam Montgomery and his wife's progress and their engagement of services with MADCF. This is a standard request in such cross-border cases. But while NHDCYF was waiting for the necessary information, a court in Lawrence, Massachusetts abruptly gave sole custody of Harmony to her father in February of 2019. It is unclear why the Massachusetts courts moved so quickly with this permanent placement prior to the completion of the home study. Why would the Massachusetts court choose to place custody of Harmony with this horrible individual? What caused such a fateful decision? What makes this case exceptionally unusual is that not only did a Massachusetts judge move to place this child with such a monster as Adam Montgomery, but it did so without, all caps, without an interstate compact for the placement of children home study to be completed. This home study likely would have proven that Adam Montgomery was unfit. You read this and you're wondering, where the hell is this girl? Is she in Massachusetts? She's in New Hampshire. Well, folks, she's in New Hampshire. So she was in New Hampshire. The New Hampshire DCYF, the Division of Children, Youth, and Families, knew about her. This is what you call passing the buck. She was here. It's so, the real monstrousness is the fact that the New Hampshire DCYF, the state of New Hampshire, failed. I just read this paragraph. You read George Orwell had a brilliant essay from about 1942 about the use of the English language, which was really about the misuse of the English language. She's in New Hampshire. Massachusetts DCF requests that New Hampshire DCYF conduct a home study, but they can't do anything until they hear from Massachusetts. But she's in New Hampshire. Right, yeah, sure. The live free or die state, right? Pass the buck. I was told by a guy that knew more about politics than anybody that the first thing a politician has to do is lie. Of course, he did say there were different types of lying. Now, this is my own words. I mean, lying, I guess, is like prostitution. You go all the way from like a $50 curb crawler up to the $10,000 a night dollies that, the people of Trump's class use. And so there's lies and then there's lying. But, yeah, this is rhetorical prestidigitation. Prestidigitation being stage magic. Jeez, yes, Here's more of the political campaign speech of Governor Christopher T. Sununu, couched as a letter to the Chief Justice of the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court. No child should ever leave Massachusetts in the custody of a dangerous criminal like Adam Montgomery. Well, Adam Montgomery was in New Hampshire, right? She was in New Hampshire. Somehow, I guess, New Hampshire's responsibility for a child in New Hampshire doesn't exist. It's bull. I wished I could really say the whole phrase. God, this is so cynical. As neighboring states, we owe it to our residents, especially our vulnerable children, that we are working together to protect the best interests of our most vulnerable citizens. We must ensure that moving forward at risk children, let's see. We must ensure that moving forward at risk children of our states, talk about garbled syntax, even is challenging me. We must ensure that moving forward, at-risk children of our states are protected and adequately monitored. Something the state of New Hampshire under Governor Christopher T. Sununu failed to do. He failed to do many things, like protect the veterans up at the Tilton Veterans Home. We have a billionaire here, who's right over in Bedford, that was bringing all sorts of protective equipment into the state. Tens of thousands of pieces of protective equipment. And they're at the Veterans Home in Tilton for 6 months. They didn't have any. They were completely inadequate. And the veterans died. In Massachusetts, the terrible Massachusetts that, New Hampshire people rail against, they went out, a similar thing happened there too at the one, I think it's in Hollyhock. But the people actually talked about it. Politicians actually said something about it. And they actually went after some scalps there who, because of the Massachusetts, whatever, Civil Service Board, managed to save their own asses. But, that's a big difference between Massachusetts and New Hampshire. People actually do things there. They actually get mad. They actually say and do things. And that actually happens in towns outside of Manchester, New Hampshire, too. When a high school rape is covered up, and it's revealed that a sitting mayor had covered it up for 18 months during political campaign. Well, Manchester, except for a handful of people, including me, everybody just, you think it was Nazi Germany and that they were afraid of their lives. A city of cowards. Now, in Concord, they had a high school rape. People got mad there. They did stuff. There was in Bedford, you remember in Exeter, a former Bedford, was she a Bedford? She had been a guidance counselor there, and she seduced a 14-year-old girl. So that's rape, statutory rape. And they actually, in Bedford, had some of her fellow guidance counselors go to the courtroom and testify what a wonderful person she was. And they went hog wild in Bedford. And I believe that not one school board member got reelected to the next board. They got angry. In Exeter, they got angry. There was actually another community around Exeter that was affected by that. And they got angry, too. They actually brought in psychologists to talk to the kids. But Manchester, hey, what the hell, But it seems to be a disease. Yet we pick your president. This is to the rest of America. Jeez, what a clown. I always call the General Court, which is the state legislature up in Concord. I'll leave some of the Senate of that, 'cause at least they're serious, most of them. I call it the Clown College. Well, we got a chief clown here, Christopher T. Sununu. It just amazed me. Democrats would come up to me the last election. Oh, he's pro-choice. Yeah, for a pro-choice politician, he sure is against abortion, isn't he? I mean, how can you delude yourself about people like that? Do nothing. A dummy, in my opinion. Yeah, it's enough to make you angry. It's enough to make you wish you were back in California. Also, the cold weather makes me wish I was back in California. People actually do things there. Every state I lived in, people did things. They wouldn't put up with crap like this. They wouldn't put up with a politician like Joe Kelly Levasseur. But even outside of Manchester, they won't put up with a Joe Kelly Levasseur type of politician. In Londonderry, they had a kook like that, a kook, in my opinion, and that's everybody in the town council is Republicans. They drove the guy off as an embarrassment. Here, though, Jesus, there's some type of masochism. Is it because we're still a mill town at heart? Yeah, some colorful language comes to mind. Yeah, this is my hometown. Well, I guess that Victoria Sullivan is running for alderman of Ward 9. The self-admitted person who's not the smartest person. It's from the horse's mouth, folks. She's honest about that. She certainly is not the most smartest person in Manchester, or probably the room. But what a disaster it would be for that woman, that person, to be on the board of aldermen. I mean, as bad as Ted Gatsas was, as bad as Ted Gatsas in the vicious campaigns he ran in 2013, there was a real nasty one. 2015, it's 2015. Oh yeah, I saw. That's my first real campaign, and I was right inside the guts of that one. Dirty as effing hell. Dirty, 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 dirty. As dirty as you'd see in any place. You know, there's a axiom in political science: the smaller the city, the more corrupt it is. It's hard to believe, but I've lived in New York. I've lived in San Francisco and Los Angeles and Boston. I've lived in New York City. You wouldn't think so. I remember Glenn R.J. Ouellette always said Manchester was like Chicago, which my father lived next to. I don't really know about Chicago. But, geez, he was right about that. Glenn he knows his stuff. And he told me a lot of things that came true. I found out it was true. And, but I'll tell you, Gatzis in 2015 was nasty and dirty. And both with Pat Arnold and with Joyce Craig. And then in 2017, he ran a nasty, vicious campaign. But I'll tell you, the last campaign, and I don't think I'm the only one that believes this or has this opinion, it was the nastiest campaign ever. And I only go back, really, 2015. I don't remember the 2013 campaign. I think Chris Herbert ran in that one. And somebody told me he's Republican, so I didn't vote for him. Mark Hayward said, "Oh, you'd like him," which I did when I found it. He's a liberal, and he was a genuine liberal, and then he became a Democrat, and now spends a lot. He used to spend a lot of his time preaching about what being a Democrat was. Something being a Democrat since I went down to City Hall and registered in was it 1977. I didn't need to be told about, but Chris is a good guy. But last campaign was as nasty as they come. It was nastier than anything, at least I'm saying Joyce Craig had to put up with. Because I must be one of the harshest critics of Ted Gatzis, but I never didn't respect the man. I might not respect some of the things he does or some of his opinions, but I respected him as a man. If I'm going to have like a nemesis, hey, he's a heavyweight. He's no lightweight, and I'm not making fun of his weight. I'm no lightweight either in that department. But, I would never doubt that Ted Gatzis loved Manchester, New Hampshire. Never. I mean, he's given a lot back to the city. Him and his brother. They love the city. I can't say that about Victoria Sullivan, and this is my opinion. I can't say that at all. I don't understand a person like that. To come, she lived in Goffstown before, and she claims that's Manchester when she's trying to poo-poo charges of being carpetbagger, which you're always going to be like a carpetbagger in a city like this, because everybody has been here forever. Or like me, Joyce Craig, and we came from here, then we were gone, then we came back. But, she only lived here for like several years, and she's already running for state rep, but that's par of the course with the Clown College. 400 seats, most unprofessional legislature in the entire United States. One of the reasons why this state is so stymied in the last probably 20 years now. The state hasn't grown at all. Except illegal aliens, but that's beside the point. But to come to a city and then just defecate on it, to insult this city constantly, to run down the schools, run down school teachers, to actually drop trowel and take a dump right on a city that you're not from. To me, that's shameful. It's pathetic, too. The Republican Party, though, there is no Manchester Republican Party. In my opinion, it's the Free State Project. You have somebody like Carla Gericke, for some reason, has 2 shows on Manchester Public TV Service, which you're not supposed to have, but Christ, who knows? No, she's listed on the thing. And I went through that with Mr. Baseball. You weren't around then for my Mr. Baseball show. But I was getting some advice from the studio. She just irritates me, Brendan. She irritates me because every day of my life, because of my military service, I have to suffer. And here's a person that won a lottery in the 1990s to get a U.S. citizenship, comes to a country and declares it her enemy. I mean, back in the Red Scare days, of the two Red Scares, they'd throw somebody of that right out of the friggin' country, no matter whether they had become a U.S. citizen or not. I mean, there's another person that just takes a dump on Manchester. I don't even know. It's just disgusting. These people disgust me. I've never seen politics like that. I mean, you have a Joe Kelly Levasseur who, in my opinion, and I'm not a psychologist, I don't have any medical background. I probably have like Psych 101 from college, which was 40 years ago. I think he's mentally ill. I think he has a narcissistic personality disorder, or probably post-traumatic stress disorder that's untreated. But once again, these are just opinions. I have no idea really what it is. Some people say he's evil, which, sounds simplistic, but maybe the old medieval thinking is right in some ways. But, Joe is a Manchesterite. If he wants to, he likes to film people dropping trowel and taking a dump on the streets of Manchester. If he metaphorically wants to drop trowel and take a dump on Manchester, he's a Manchesterite. But I don't understand somebody that's a perpetual candidate for mayor, and we're not talking about Glenn R.J. Ouellette right now, because he's the people's mayor. We're talking about Victoria Sullivan, perpetual candidate for mayor. Somebody told me, a critic of hers, but a Republican, that, the 2 years between the 19 election and the 21 election, she just basically thinks she is the mayor of Manchester. And you see on her side, it says Victoria Sullivan, mayor of Manchester. You go to her website, which I don't have access to, but people send me screenshot everything, folks. Don't tell me something without a screenshot, because it's worthless without that. They send me screenshots. She still has, running Manchester mayor candidate. Of course, she's a perpetual candidate. She's Harold Stassen, who used to run in the New Hampshire primary from 1944 to like 1972 inclusive, long after they ran out of gas. But, this is a person that we have an incoming call. Oh, wow, Brendan, are you trying to sabotage me?
No, I didn't know if it wasn't working if you were waiting for calls.
Well, I'm on a rant now, and I figure we can always do the show with Peter Stella another day since he is working, and he was going to take some time out. But, I just think that somebody told me she was on Tammy Simmons's Manch Talk, I guess that's the show. The one Carla Garricky is on, too. And that she said about they're two friends of mine that I've known since kindergarten, Gary Hamer, who's in the school board, and Heidi Hamer, who's my state rep, and Tammy's state rep. We both come from Ward 10. That I guess she said that they weren't wearing their masks. Well, from what Heidi tells me, they were out in a parking garage. They're either getting in a car or coming out of a car, so that's why they weren't wearing their masks. I find it very strange for, here's Victoria Sullivan, who doesn't wear a mask, who claims she had COVID, which means if she did have COVID, that means she would be giving off the spike, whatever the hell that stuff is. And that became an issue at the debate, that she's criticizing them, I guess because they're hypocrites for not wearing a mask in a parking garage. But somebody started sending me stuff like last month or something about Carla Garricky and her Facebook site and stuff. Say, you should watch her stuff. Folks, I can't watch that stuff. I have CPTSD. I'm actually diagnosed with it. It's enough to drive me crazy to think about this stuff. And I guess Carla Garricky's a real balls to the walls, COVID denier, anti-vaxxer, and besides hating the United States, it's just amazing that this woman is a avowed secessionist who, like in her native South Africa, where the whites, the Afrikaans, put blacks in these homelands and tried to make them their own states. This is before Mandela, one of the great men of all time, was let out of prison, and you had a transition to a multiracial, black-dominated South Africa. They were putting them all in their little homelands, and they were all their own little nations. So white people could just enjoy South Africa all to their lonesome, while still exploiting the blacks. And I have no idea whether she's pro-apartheid. I think one of the reasons she wanted to get out of there is because she's probably anti-apartheid. But she wants her own little homeland, the free state of New Hampshire. She wants New Hampshire to secede, which, let's be frank, it is just an opinion, which I have to state because I'm tired. I've been sued before and threatened with lawsuits from the right wing. That's kind of crazy. I mean, crazy. I'm not saying in a specific technical, what would you call, scientific way. It's just crazy. Never going to happen. But, to get U.S. citizenship and then just wanting to defecate it away, Talk about nuts, And I'm saying that in a nice way, a non-judgmental way, I guess. Sure, non-judgmental. I mean, the people that I can't understand that when this woman continually runs for state senate, like against Lou D'Alessandro, who's my state senator, why she isn't hit with this nonsense. Why? Why don't the Democrats do something? I mean, Jesus, People should know about this crap. Maybe it's so fantastic that maybe it's just so frigging fantastic. It's beyond belief. It's like beyond satire. We've lived in a world beyond satire for quite a while now, I have to admit. But these people, but getting back to Victoria Sullivan, she's bemoaning the fact that the city elected Joyce Craig. What a nasty campaign. I used to think she was a nice person, but then I went into some of the social media stuff, and Victoria was very nasty about Joyce and about other people too. Now she puts her she sits like a Buddha, I guess, on a couch or in her car and gives these rambling speeches or whatever. I find them unwatchable. People send them to me. Criminy. I watch some of it. How much can you take, And my God, it's like she said, she says that she got into public service. This was on Manch Talk, I guess. She wanted to help people. She wanted to help people. Help people to what? I don't know. Joyce Craig is trying to help people. People like Bill Barry are trying to help people. Pat Long tries to help people. All people that these people in the anarcho-libertarian so-called Republican Party, the FSP, GOP, seem to despise. Let's get down to it. That man that I knew that knew more about politics than anybody I knew. I was with him with Joe Biden, and Joe Biden even was in awe of this guy. He was one of those reasons why you have the New Hampshire primary in New Hampshire, because there were people like that. Lou D'Alessandro. There's no politics from the precinct level, or we call it the ward level, right on up. And he said that the politician gets into it because of ego. Every politician has an ego. And, let's be frank. When you are, the stuff that comes out of Victoria Sullivan's mouth and their posts, to me, it's egotism. That's right, egocentric. I'm right. This isn't like, I've had my friend, I had my friend Russ Terrio on, who's a Republican, and I've known Republicans all my life. Who hasn't, right? You know, we disagree with stuff. We even get heated. I told him if he kept campaigning with Victoria Sullivan, he'd get defeated. And it happened, and it's no surprise that it did. But you know, I find Ross, I like Ross, and people like Ross, Democrats like Ross. You know, he's easy to get along with, and there's got to be an opposition. But there were people, the Republicans, like Jeb Bradley is a person that can bring up. You know, you might get mad at Jeb Bradley in the old days when he was running for Congress and say things, but you know, the guy was a very decent person. I talked to Democrats that knew him, and he was very friendly and nice. And why not? They respected him. And he was a person in that talk about bipartisanship where things worked. Because people like the late Bob Dole, who died last year, who was a titan of the Senate, they had their opinions, but they also knew about how to compromise. The thing about Bob Dole, because when Bob Dole ran with Gerald Ford in '76 as his vice presidential candidate, he was considered a right-winger. He was a sop to the right wing. We got rid of Nelson Rockefeller, a species of Republican that doesn't exist anymore, the Rockefeller Republican, the Teddy Roosevelt Republican, the Progressive Republican. You know, they got rid of Rocky, and Bob Dole is considered a right-winger. But he was famous for his pragmatism, for being able to talk to the people on the other side of the aisle, make a deal, to bargain in good faith with people. And that's a pretty essential thing to politics. But then there's like this like Rich Girard accused Victoria Sullivan of the slash and burn politics. See, I didn't see it at first because I liked Victoria Sullivan. I met her once or twice or something. I think just once now that I think of it. And, you know, I liked her and stuff, and I never... But I think Girard, who had to deal with her, probably knows her better. And I've heard plenty from other people now in the last 2 years. And then I had this experience covering the last election, the last municipal election. And this is a person, you know, I heard Rosanna McMahon calls it a cult, right? And, you know, I think, oh, you know, Rosanna's like the female John Hopwood, you know, hyperbole, and rhetorically I'm speaking about, and you know, really goes for the jugular. But then you think about it, it's the things that they say, like she's bemoaning the fact, we only have 2 people on the school board, the people blah blah blah, all these people, like my friend Gary Hammer, they're awful, and they're I don't want to, for the sake of not having to brief a lawyer in the future, go into further. But, you know, she's just pissing and moaning about like it's the Armageddon, and, you know, Antichrist is won, and Christ is nowhere to be seen, except if she's Christ or God. They call it, Jung, the great psychologist, called it ego inflation. And it's a danger in any occupation, like if you're a writer, an artist, a CEO, or a politician, the ego inflation. I mean, this is a messianic type of thinking, that, you know, she is here to save the city of this wickedness. Oh, my God. And this is a strain of reactionary politics that's as old as the Republic itself, you know. Richard Hofstadter won 2 Pulitzer Prizes. He wrote a couple of great books. They're classics. One was The Anti-Intellectual Tradition in America. But, and you know, the great thing about Hofstadter was he never really judged the people he was talking about. He talked about like reactionaries in the 20s and 30s, the rural reactionaries that like fueled the Ku Klux Klan. And he said they had they were insecure economically. You know, farmers during the boom times of the 20s had really nothing and were suffering. And they had a lot of antagonism as society was changing. And they were afraid. And there is a lot of fear. And when the ruling class just poo-poos your fears or ignores it or tries to demonize you for your fears, I mean, it causes a reaction. And you get a reactionary. It's just like 2 + 2 = 4, you know. There's a saying in South Germany, I guess in Munich, Augsburg actually, which is part of Bavaria. If a man is kicked, he frequently kicks back. But I don't know. I don't like this tenor of politics. I've seen it before, like in places like Texas or the South. I just don't associate it with New Hampshire, of all places. I remember in 2012, Michelle Bachmann, who was born again, fundamentalist Christian, was campaigning here. She actually financed a 12-page little newspaper, like one of those. Everything's so small now, even regular newspapers. It was 12 pages or so folded, and you'd find it along with the hippo, like at Hannaford's or Market Basket, although Market Basket was near in Manchester in 2012. And I covered the 2012 New Hampshire presidential primary for Yahoo. And I remember what it was said, that she's not going to succeed in any way because there just aren't any fundamentalists here in New Hampshire. Well, there are a lot more now. New Hampshire, with its, which I think is childish constitution, it's such a barbarous and stupid and out-of-date constitution. That 400-seat New Hampshire General Court, oh my God, what an abomination, to use some biblical language. I mean, the goddamn confederacy of dunces up there. It's simply beyond belief. And the fools up there. I mean, they made Victoria Sullivan and Al Baldessaro assistant majority leaders as a sop to the hard right wing, because Victoria Sullivan is from a very hard reactionary right wing. I mean, just not used to that in New Hampshire. I mean, you got Levasseur. Levasseur, I wouldn't say he's a reactionary. He just only in the sense that he reacts against everything and chose his own case, I'm writing a book, and he has a central part in that. But he's still, to figure out Joe, I guess you just have to go back to the old Freudian concept of id, right? But I guess that Victoria Sullivan is going to be taking over Joe's show every other week, at least, I guess, through the Ward 9 election. Did you hear? Is it going to be March 15th, Brendan? But I guess,
Don't know yet.
yeah, you did. I didn't know if they voted on it or not. Incidentally, former Fire Chief Burkish, who ran against Barbara Shaw, was it 2019? Yeah, and he lost, and he would be a favorite candidate to run to the late Barbara Shaw's seat. Geez, that was a shock. I actually cried when I heard Barbara died. She was one of my favorites amongst the local politicians. But, that's true. I think most everybody in Manchester. But I noticed that, I don't get the union leader, and the union leader has a nice firewall, so you can't really get in there and look at anything. And I'm not technically proficient to hack my way through. Although I do notice that Yahoo picks up some of the articles, like by Mark Hayward, but that takes a day or so. And you can find them by searching on a title that you can't get into. But I noticed that there's supposedly some scandal about the firemen getting paid for nothing, and there's a whistleblower. Well, folks, the genesis of that is that former Chief Burkish is probably a Democrat, and he is a strong candidate to win the seat, the aldermanic seat in Ward 9. Thus, the stories, the old smear. Norman Mailer, who was one of the greatest writers America ever made, now out of fashion because, good God, two-fisted drunk, a misogynist. But God, how he could write. And revolutionized American prose as much as Hemingway did in the 20s and 30s. mailer in the 60s, and the New Journalism. He used to, there's a great piece he wrote for Esquire magazine, which, this is when magazines really were something. And it's called 10,000 Words a Minute. It's about the first fight between Floyd Patterson and Sonny Liston in 1962, where Patterson lost his world heavyweight championship to Sonny Liston. And what a tour de force it is. But I wished I had my copy. I left it at home. I'd read you some of the prose. Maybe I'll do it in a week or 2 or 3. He talks about the press and journalism. The whole thing about fake journalism, it's not like this is a new thing that people talk about fake journalism. Everybody knows the press, the old yellow press, tailored the news, hyped it up, distorted it, yellow journalism. And he writes about the journalism in service to the goat. He called it the goat being that part of the American establishment that is here to sell you the sizzle, not the steak, to sell you the bowl rather than the bowl itself, to make you eat excrement from a rusty spoon and call for more. I mean, that is the essence of what the United States became after World War I. Ooh, jeez, I should turn off my phone. But, hey, call in, we'll got 10 more minutes. But I tell you, the goat. The United States basically, what is the United States anymore? It's just basically marketing and advertising. What does the United States stand for? Anything. The ability to go into consumer debt. I mean, this is what it is now. It's just a complete carnival, a complete farce. I mean, I was going to do the next part of the show about that we didn't finish, Nightmare Alley, the great 1947 film that's been remade. There's a reason why a film like that is a classic and why it persists, because it touches on an aspect of the American character, and this is a worldwide classic too. There's something about the United States, the carny, the shill, the look into my eyes. He's going to sell you something. He's going to tell you the future. He's going to tell you your future. He's going to give you blue skies. He's going to give you the world. The salesman, the con man. That's the essence of the United States. And that, sell the sizzle, as I said, not the steak. In 1929, one of the most famous advertising men of the time, and they were men, madmen, and wrote a book that if Christ was alive in 1929, he'd be an advertising man. Advertising reached its maturity during World War I in 1917 to sell the war to end all wars, the Great War, which my grandfather fought in, and his brother. And advertising has been debasing the human condition ever since. And many years ago, when me and Matt at our shows back to back, we ran the 1957 interview of Mike Wallace with Aldous Huxley, the great Aldous Huxley, who wrote Brave New World, which 1984 and Brave New World, they're like, there you go, English, but about utopia or dystopia. And he said, because 56 was the first election where they really started using advertising, where the actor Robert Montgomery, who was Elizabeth Montgomery of Bewitched, one of my first crushes, by the way, father, he was the consultant to Ike in how to sell yourself. 68 is generally considered the great milestone where Madison Avenue, Mad Men, sold, the president, selling the president. They took like tainted tuna fish, soiled toilet paper known as Richard Nixon, and then sold them right to the American people. And he became the president of the United States. And anybody that thinks Donald Trump was the worst president, or that he was out of, the norm, you didn't grow up in the 60s, you didn't know about LBJ, Lyndon Johnson, or Richard Nixon, two psychotics, two sociopaths who between them killed 60 or more thousand Americans in Vietnam and 2 million or more Southeast Asians. Utterly corrupt. I mean, for all his vulgarity, and Donald Trump was just a piker compared to people like that. Jesus Christ. The Cell. I don't think Victoria Sullivan can sell herself, though. She just doesn't sell herself very well. I mean, when you have somebody like Joe Lavasser probably as your eminence grise, the gray eminence behind you, as your Richelieu, you're in trouble, man, or woman, or genderless individual. But, Jesus, I was going to talk a little about the last week's show, which is a rerun, because people say, what the hell is that about? Which, the guy that was on it was, we can get to that. That should be its own show. Or maybe I should just do a podcast about it. But my friend Victoria Vianon, who's, I think she's still in Russia right now, we talked about the United States becoming the Soviet Union. And remember, we used to talk about stuff like that when I was a Soviet hand, and military intelligence. Because, nobody actually did think the USSR was going to break up. But beginning in the late 70s, there was actually, from inside the USSR, speculation that it was going to happen. And people we talk about that, never thinking it would happen. So I remembered I was with my girlfriend at the time who was going to go to Russia in 1991 when they had the aborted coup, in Moscow. And, it was all that. Everything was a surprise when the Soviet Union collapsed. But it did. And would it be so outlandish to think the USSR, which the U.S., not the USSR, will collapse too? It parallels the USSR in so many ways. They freed the serfs, white serfs, bound to the land in 1863. We liberated African chattel slaves in 1865. Moscow, the Rus started in Kiev, but Moscow, the Duchy of Moscow, just kept getting bigger and bigger. Just like, Greater New England got bigger. Greater New England, it was actually the United States. It beat the South, a different economic system in the war. And it just seems the parallels of the United States. It's hard to think about the United States, going the way of the USSR, breaking up. But now, everybody knows that Biden cannot be president in 2024. Jesus, the Democrats, because I am a Democrat, we're going to lose both houses of Congress in 2022. And who's going to be the presidential candidate in 2024? If you had lived in California like I had, that the vice president, Kamala Harris, was a terrible pick. I mean, purely demographics, in my opinion, for a demographic. And there were better people I wished he could have picked if he's going to go that route. And so now they're talking about Hillary Clinton in 2024. It's really started, the fire is coming up. And, I was just, when I was at Boston University in 78 to 82, and we were looking at the old gerontocracy, Brezhnev and Andropov and all these old farts, because they were it was the USSR hanging on by its fingernails. Little did we know, and I've talked about this on Matt's show before, Gorbachev, a younger generation, all collapsed when you moved the generations and the verities. We have these old, ancient farts at the head of our parties. Nancy Pelosi with her $150 million fortune dealing in stocks. dealing, in insider information. She was my congresswoman when I first got to California in 1989. She's like 80 years old. My God, Chuck Schumer, the Wall Streets. This guy's been incompetent when he was just a regular congressman in the House leadership. But he's there because he's Wall Street's boy, How old is he? Then you had Trump. He's 100 years old. I remember when I got out of college and lived in New York with my honey from West High School. And Hillary Clinton, my God. These are people that are like 80s. It's like the old Soviet gerontocracy. Because if you pass it off to the next baton, next generation, it's all going to collapse. The whole house of cards is coming down. This whole Ponzi scheme. And I've realized this Ponzi scheme in the 80s. It's a whole Ponzi scheme. It's just going to collapse. And they're trying like hell to lobotomize people, which, Aleister Crowley, he was a diabolist. The guy who wrote Brave New World, Huxley, you just, God damn, huh? You just lobotomize people. It's a fine art now, just to take their neuronal networks and turn them into cyborgs. And you want to know, that's why you got kids that the scores in our schools are so atrocious. They're different than the way somebody my age or somebody probably 50 or whatever was raised, Your neuronal networks are wired differently. You've got your generation of cyborgs, but that's a whole nother cup of tea, ball of wax, whatever. That's a whole nother show. But I'll tell you what, I just think if Victoria Sullivan gets on that board of aldermen with her poisonous attitude, it'll be a disaster for this city because, it's just the politics of attack. And it's beyond the pale. I mean, if this city is ever going to succeed, it has to come into the 21st century. My father used to say Manchester was 25 years behind the time. I got here back in 2010, and I found it was 1946 here still. I mean, Jackie Robinson was still up in Montreal playing for the Royals, But we've made a lot of progress. I think so. And a lot of people like Joyce and Jim O'Connell, we have made a lot of progress. And they should be backed. And I see I'm running out of time. And I thank you. And I'll see you next week for some more informed ranting and raving from yours truly, John Hopwood. Bye.